Hey there, and welcome to the IS306 Labs Part 8. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build layouts using CSS. So if you remember in the previous video I showed you guys the basics of CSS, and I told you about the divs as well as the span tags. These are special tags that you will use heavily with CSS simply because these two tags contain no properties and no styles, so it's like an empty canvas for you to work with. Well, layouts are going to be working with divs a lot because layouts are generally made out of boxes. So in this video, I'm going to be going in depth about how boxes work within CSS and give you an example of how you're going to use them to build layouts. Now, the first thing that you guys should know about HTML as well as CSS is that there's some sort of gravity within HTML and CSS from the web browser, and the gravity is going upwards. That means that anything that you put will generally stick towards the top, and the web browser will follow the HTML file and render things from the top to the bottom. So this is the first thing that you need to know, that gravity goes upwards. The second thing is the whole idea of containers. Now when you have a box within a box, the box that's inside, in this case this blue box, will be bound by the boundaries of the master container itself. So this is one of the things that we will be using to help us build our layouts. So for our demo, I'm going to be building a very simple yet very common layout as well. So one of the tricks that we usually use is to have one gigantic container, and this container will be the place where all of our content is going to be stored in. In our case, we're going to be building a container, and just to make it highly visible, we're going to be making this container purple. Alright, then on the top we're going to be adding a header, followed by a sidebar on the side, and then the main contents, followed by a footer. And just so that you can see which is which, I'm going to be coloring based on these colors as well: blue, red, orange, and green. And then finally, these are the dimensions of the boxes that we will be using. So this is a good way for you to design a layout beforehand. Draw it on paper, draw it on PowerPoint, whatever it is. Design how you want the boxes to be, and then following that, write down all the dimensions so that you have what exactly you're going to be doing. So now let's head down to Microsoft Expression Web. I've got this empty HTML file right here, and here I've got the styles. So we're going to start by going into the HTML itself, and within the body I'm going to be creating a div, and I'm going to call this container. Alright, so this is going to be that master container that we were talking about. Okay, and within this container, remember, starting from the top, alright, we're going to have the header, so I'm going to call this one header. Okay, and then underneath that I'm going to have the sidebar, and then we have the main content, so I'm going to call this one content, and finally I've got a footer. So these are all the 4 boxes that we saw in that PowerPoint slide earlier, and you can press F5 and you can see all these things appearing immediately. So this is the key that you'll be pushing a lot when you're working with Microsoft Expression Web. So one of the things that you'll notice is that, like I mentioned, all div boxes by default have absolutely no style, so they don't look like anything at all. And we're going to start styling them right now by creating all of the relevant styles for these things. So let's start with the container. Alright, and it's an ID, so we're going to start with hex, and we're going to set a width to it. So this width will be the boundary that we'll be putting for the entire website itself, and like we had shown in the slide, it's going to be 800 pixels, and we're going to set a background color of purple, like that. Okay, so that's the container. So just push F5 and you see the whole thing has turned purple because that is the master container. All the other boxes are within that master box. So we're going to go to the next one, which is the header. Alright, and this one, it has a height, that's right, of 150 pixels, and it's got a color of blue. You can press F5 with that, and you can see, there you go, that is our header. I know it's very blinding, but these colors are usually useful, allow you to see how much space each of these boxes are taking, and so that you can know which box you're looking at as well. Alright, so we've got that, and let's go and take a look at the sidebar. And the sidebar has a width of 150 pixels as well, with a height of 400 pixels, and a background color of red. Press F5. There you see, you got sidebar over there. Let's define the content. We've got ourselves a width of 800 minus 150, that is 650 pixels, and a height that's also 400 pixels, and a background color of orange. And finally, we've got the footer, which has a height of 100 pixels and a background color of green. So you're going to press F5 again, and there you go, you can see this layout. But one of the things that you'll notice is that our sidebar is on the left, and so is the content, and they're not side by side just like we wanted them to be within the picture itself. So this is one other property that you need to know with regards to divs by default. Everything stacks from the top to the bottom. Doesn't matter, you know, what is the width and all that kind of stuff. It will just stack from the top to the bottom. So even if we add a margin, let's say for example we're going to go to the content box, and we're going to add a margin on the left of 150 pixels, so that will make it the exact same margin space as the navigation, the sidebar over here. And you'll notice that sure, it's pushed away to, towards the right, but because everything stacks from the top to the bottom, these things are still on top of each other and not side by side as we wanted them. So how do we build a layout like this? Well, there is one particular CSS property called float, and what float does is that it basically, just like it describes, it causes the box itself to float away. So just imagine that everything is on a single layer. Alright, and because of these layers, everything is not going, you know, nothing is going to be side by side, because, you know, they're not going to allow each other to go side by side. So when you cause one of the boxes to float, in this case I'm going to make the red box to float, it's going to be floating above the normal layer. It's going to be on its own layer as well. So now the orange box is going to think that there's nothing on top, and because, like I mentioned earlier, gravity goes upwards, it's going to stick all the way to the top and hit the header. Alright, so I'm just gonna show you how I'm gonna do that on the sidebar. I'm gonna say float, and floats have directions. By default the float is none, so we're gonna set the float to left. Okay, and now hit F5 and voila, that's it. Now you've got this thing sticking upwards like that. So you've just built yourself a simple layer. So we can just press F12 and open this up in Google Chrome. And there you go, the exact layout that we wanted to have in our presentation is right now on our website itself. Everything the way that we want it to. Now that we have that, realistically speaking, your sidebars and content section, these two boxes right here, they generally don't actually have a fixed height. That's because it's based on the content that's inside. So sometimes your sidebar might be longer, sometimes your content might be longer. So for example, let's say if we have a sidebar that is shorter than the content, let's just go into the sidebar and change the height to say 200 pixels, and we just press F5 again. So you'll notice that, well, this thing's going to be going upwards and it's using the content to push it downwards, and we're going to just go to Google Chrome and verify if that is the case. Yes, that is the case, and the background is starting to show up. But what if happens if it goes the other way around? So the sidebar is 400 pixels, whereas the content is 200. Okay, press F5 again, and you see right here, this is one problem that you'll face a lot. The footer has gone upwards, has shot upwards, and has really broken out of the box itself. So just to show it to you, if I'm going to refresh the page on Google Chrome, you'll see this really messed up footer and not going the way that you want it to be. So how do you keep the footer at the bottom to make sure that regardless of what is the height of the sidebar and the content, it will always stay at the most bottom? Alright, and this is going to be another property, CSS property known as clear. And what clear does is that what it's going to say is that it does not allow any box to be on its left or on its right. Any box that is on the same layer as itself, the same level as itself, to be on the left and on the right. So the footer box is inside the master container box, and then when we set the clear to both, again you can say nothing on its left, nothing on its right, or you can say nothing on either sides, which is what we want. It will cause the footer to now stick to the very bottom. So let's save this file and take a look at it right now again. And in Google Chrome, you notice finally the footer is now at the bottom. So regardless which one is taller, whether it's the sidebar or the main content, the footer will always be stuck at the bottom. So this is something that we want. So there's two particular properties that I've just taught you today, which is one is the float property, which we've used with the sidebar, and the other one is the clear property. Now do take note that you can't just use float alone. When you use float alone, let's say for example, let's get rid of this margin left property and let's just press F5 again. If you just use float alone, you're going to have some problems with some of these boxes where they will stack on top of each other, because that's the whole idea of float. Alright, so if I do this and I save and I go back to Google Chrome, you notice that my orange box is now stuck towards the left and a bit of the background is showing up. So that's not what we want. So that is the reason why we've set a margin of 150 pixels from the left that pushes it towards the left. So that is the whole idea of how margins work, and this is how you put the whole box model, which I'm going to be showing in this particular slide. This is how you put the whole box model into use. And that's why it's very important to know this particular box model. The margin is the one that pushes things out. So using this particular model itself, you can also, this is also the same tools that you'll be using to add spaces between boxes if you so desire. So another thing that I want to show you is what happens if we put words inside. So I say, okay, header, sidebar, content, and footer. Okay. You'll see all of these words will be stuck towards the extreme left, top left corner of each box. So this is where paddings come in. So margin again is space outside of the box, and padding is the space inside the box. So let's start with the header, for example. If I actually create a padding of 5 pixels, alright, it will put a 5 pixel space. So watch the word header as I press F5, and you can see that right now there's a 5 pixel space. And one thing you'll also note is that now the whole box is now 160 pixels rather than 150. So that's one of the things that you need to take note. Whenever you add any padding, you need to keep that in mind with regards to the height. Alright, so the height is based on the content itself. So now I'm gonna press F5, and now everything is back to 150 pixels again. Another tip that I want to share with you, if you notice this whole box is stuck towards the left, so how do you put it towards the center? Now most likely you will think of, hey, I'll just set the body tag to align to the center, but that doesn't actually really work that well. So this is another reason why we have this master container. So let's say if you're going to set a margin on the left of 100 pixels, it's not actually going to look correctly because it's going to be having 100 pixels, but this side is going to still have more. So to really center it, there's actually a trick to do it, and all you have to do is just set the margin on the left to auto, and to set the margin on the right to auto as well. You'll notice that right now my entire page itself is now centered to the middle. So that is something that will be very useful for you. So again, as a refresher, 3 things: the floats, the clear property, as well as setting the margins left and the right to auto. These things will save you a lot of time. You don't really have to figure it out anymore because I just taught you. So I hope that really helped you a lot with regards to learning how to build a simple layout using CSS, and hopefully that gives you a look at how the box model actually works itself. So that was part 8 of the IS306 Labs, where I just showed you how to build CSS layouts. So right now you have all the tools that you need to design your entire web application. You know how to do HTML as well as CSS and use it to build layouts. So all that's left right now is to add some logic, and that's what I'm going to be dedicating the next few videos to do. If you've got any questions, just post them on the eLearn forums and I'll be there to answer them. If not, I'll see you guys next time.